Hey guys, Bored now back with you, and on this video I will be reviewing the pilot episode of Apple TV's new teen drama. It is called Home Before Dark, and the first episode is called Magic Hour. So yes, I just watched the first episode of this new series. It is loosely based on real events, so it's based on the story of this teenage, basically reporter slash detective called Hilda Lensnick, and her father, played by Jim Sturgess, is also he's like a former detective, but has given up that sort of life recently because I think of painful memories and a past which I'm sure will be unveiled as things go along. But him and his family move from big city New York, where he was, quite a prolific detective, and they move to a much smaller town to try and start over. And so you've got the whole family set up. Hilda as like a couple of sisters, I think. There's certainly one who's like an older sister who's featured quite a lot in the first episode and kind of teases her a fair bit. There's quite a bit of banter between them because Hilda has this reputation because she was like kind of like a reporter, if you like. She does like an online type journal and reported on local things in New York, and she wants to keep that going. That's why she's kind of unsettled by the move to this small town. So that becomes kind of a source of tension, if you like, between her and her family, because Hilda doesn't want to change anything. She wants to keep that going. And so they move to this small town. But of course, before long, there's a case for her to investigate. A woman mysteriously has an accident. A woman who's a friend of Hilda's father, like an old friend, and there's a secret there from his childhood growing up in the town, and that becomes the case for Hilda to investigate. So it becomes quite a personal story with her and her father. Obviously, he's trying to protect her, trying to like keep her safe and encourage her to kind of have a normal like life that you would expect like a preteen to have, and is trying to shield her all the time. But Hilda's determined to get to the bottom of this. And as I said, it's apparently based on true events. Now, I'm assuming, watching this first episode, then a fair amount has been traumatized. It certainly seemed quite dramatic at times. And I think, without knowing like the true life like adventures of this like young detective, I think it's fair to say they would have to like use quite a bit of creative license to really stretch this out and really turn it into an interesting like drama series. So it's obviously aimed at a teen audience. It's like a mystery type, teen type drama. So you've got the whole family dynamic. I should say, actually, before I say what I thought of this first episode, the young actress, not sure if I said, but played by Brooklyn Price, or Brooklyn Prince, I should say, who's this brilliant young actress who was discovered in the Florida Project, that Oscar-nominated film from a couple of years ago. Really bailed everyone away. It was her and Willem Dafoe in that film. I'm not sure if she was actually nominated. I remember Dafoe was, but I have a feeling she wasn't. but then there was a lot of talk about, wow, this is a really amazing performance from this young girl, because it's the sort of performance where a lot of it you can maybe pass off as because she's that age and the way she's been directed in the film, then it seems quite a natural performance. But also, it's a really tough film at times, and her character really goes through some stuff. So I think that there is a lot more to that performance than just like your run of the mill, like kid kind of on the loose type thing. I think she does really show a lot of like subtlety in the performance as well. So that certainly got people's attention. So immediately when I heard she was cast in the lead role in this, then I I was intrigued. I thought it sounded interesting. I was obviously curious because apparently this is based on a real life character. It's based on a book. It's adapted for Apple TV by, we have Dana Fox and Dara Rusnik, who I think may be the more significant of the two, just because I know she had a hand in Daredevil, which I've not seen yet, but I always hear kind of good things about that, the Netflix superhero show. It's one I'm going to check out soon, but she's involved. I mean, looking at Dana Fox's credits, maybe not so great, some of the stuff she's been involved in, but they're the two like creators, producers of the show, so they have it, just in case you've heard of them. But yeah, certainly Brooklyn Prince is a great lead for this, a great bit of casting, because she certainly brings a lot of that energy and life that she had in the Brooklyn project. I'm getting my cities muddled up now because it's Brooklyn Prince. The Florida project. She brings a lot of that natural sort of energy and that sort of curiosity. I think because she is like this overly curious young character, I think that fits just perfectly. And they do a good job actually setting that up in the opening scene. And so we see them driving in, we hear like a voiceover of her narrating it. And just the way they set that up, so it has her like looking around this small town, and it's almost like she's got that sort of journalistic sort of instinct, like, so the shots are just captured from her point of view, like she's just like focused and curious, and just the smallest little thing she kind of questions, and it makes like the setting of this smaller town kind of perfect, because I think a lot of times you're maybe less likely to suspect things in a smaller town, tight knit communities and all. So I think that's kind of, it's playing off that, where it's kind of saying, yeah, well, that's the sort of thing you least expect to see, like murders or crimes. So probably, yeah, those are the places you need to suspect the most. But yeah, I did like the setup and the mood and the opening shots, because like there's a local election going on, so she sees like the poster on like one of the lawn to re-elect this guy, and that's kind of the perfect sort of metaphor, because obviously people tend to be very like cynical of politicians when they pop their heads up like advertising and trying to get re-elected around election time. There's this idea of politicians being untrustworthy, and that there's something behind the facade. So I kind of like that. And that actually goes along with her in this episode. She has a funny little line where she tells someone, I've seen All the President's Men like 77 times, because it's set in the modern era, but it's interesting. You see clips of that film throughout, so she's watching the film, and it's this great little theme, because it's something that motivates her to go and find the truth. The film like reinforces this idea of like how truth is power, how truth is key, and that there's just an integrity to that. It's like the most important thing. So I like that side as well. The fact that you have this film which is so like powerful and distinct, and it's a film which a lot of people would know and understand the themes, even if you've never seen it. I mean, I only saw it for the first time quite recently, but I think in this sort of show where realistically the target audience probably isn't that old age wise, they probably are like looking for the more teenage type market. I think that's quite a good simple like tool to sort of pull them in. Just this idea of the message of that film, and the idea of this young girl being like influenced by the search for the truth. But truth, I guess that's like a well worn trope on TV and in films. So that becomes part of her motivation and the struggle. But I think that's quite a nice little like hook right there, and quite a nice like character motivation. The fact that it plays throughout the film. So or this opening episode. So I think you're probably guessing, generally I quite like this first episode with like one or two reservations. But I did like the mood of it, I liked the look of the town. It had this really effective sort of look to it. Obviously Brooklyn Price I think is very, very good. I like the stuff with her father, played by Jim Sturgess. I thought they had a good sort of chemistry and bond, and a nice family dynamic in general. We didn't get so much on the mother. She hasn't really been like that well developed. We know that she like has a legal background. Because there's sort of a funny little scene in like the principal's office where the mother is basically standing up for her daughter, because like this article leaks and it goes online, and it's to do with this woman and her supposedly being murdered, and that obviously leads to Hilda being called into the principal's office. But the mother immediately like stands up for her daughter and kind of says, well, you and I both know she hasn't actually broken any laws here. And she starts like using the legal kind of speech as a threat. But I think this is definitely gonna try and appeal to like young girls, try and like push like a feminist type angle, I think, which is no bad thing, because obviously there's probably not enough like shows really doing that. So in this scene in like the principal's office, the principal is also like quite a young woman actually. I thought she seemed quite young for a principal, but no reason to think you couldn't be. I mean, she was probably in her 30s, I'd say. Like later 30s, maybe even 40s. Actress I've seen in a few things, but anyway, there's quite young for a principal, I guess, anyway, even if she was like mid to late 40s. But there's this discussion where Hilda's mother is saying, well, she's a young girl and she has this passion. She writes like these articles online, and I don't see that as a good thing, or I only see that as a good thing because it keeps her occupied. It's a passion, something she really believes in, and I don't know too many like 9-year-olds who's doing that. And she sort of puts that to the principal, and she like picks on like one of her like crappy little artworks on the wall, and the principal like turns it around because she kind of says, "Oh, I'm only too aware of that," as like a principal who was like qualified for this job, but missed out twice to two men who clearly weren't as qualified. So it's definitely going to have a little feminist sort of tilt, which I think was quite well handled. And as I said, the general look and mood of the town. So early in the episode, Hilda sees like a car parked outside mysteriously in the middle of the night. It's like their first night there, and that's obviously something suspicious going on. But I do like the look, like the darkened streets, very sort of misty and quite murky. It does have that creepy small town vibe. Now, I'm watching this first episode. I don't think it's a show which is gonna get too dark. I think it might have one or two hairy moments, but I certainly think it's going to play a bit more on the lighter side. But even so, I thought there was a mood to like scenes like that. I thought it had a little bit of a horror element, but I'm sure we're going to steer quite clear of that. I would be surprised if things got like too dark, too atmospheric, but nice sort of look to it. There's a nice dynamic to the family, like when they were at breakfast the next morning and Hildy raises the issue, why was there a car outside, and they're all trying to pass it off. And I do like the Hildy character, just the way she questions everything and some of her language and how she's just so focused, and the back and forth, like that breakfast scene was like really well directed, had a really good flow to it. Some of the banter between her and her sister, I forget the sister's name actually, but she had an interesting part in the episode. And some of that, it just felt like a natural sort of like conversation between like two siblings being quite competitive. And this becomes a theme because obviously they know about Hildy and what she got up to in New York, and they're trying to like get her focused on like regular young girl things. And the sister's kind of being a bit mean about it, just like treating her like she's this outcast and sort of talking down to her. And there's like a blow up later on with Matt. I think his name's Matt, the Jim Sturgess father, because he's like, damn it, why can't you just act like a normal little girl? So it's sort of something you then regret, but like an outburst, which is a little bit patronising, but kind of comes out. But that's like the theme running through like the first episode. But yeah, I quite like the family dynamic. I like the relationship with the father and with like the older sister. And yes, some of the terms used by Hilda are like when they're discussing that over breakfast, she comes out and says, why do you keep deflecting everything? And like the younger sister doesn't even know what that means, which is quite funny. So the actual case is that Hilda starts talking to like this woman who is a friend of the father's, which I've already mentioned that, but they grew up together in the town. And again, Hilda's sort of on her game because she it must be the middle of the day, and for some reason she's left the school early, and she goes home, and this woman like is doing like a yard sale, and Hilda's playing like the detective because she's immediately asking her, well, why are you selling stuff now? Why is the yard sale on now when there's no adults around and they've got all the money? And I like actually then the woman immediately suspects that then she's like Matt's kid. And that's when she reveals they knew each other. And I think it's quite a nicely plotted first episode in the case because it has those small like details and moments which then come back and pay off later, which become important. So at one point she focuses on like the VCR player which is being sold at the yard sale, and nice touch because Hilda, of course, with this being set in the present, doesn't know what a VCR player is. So I do like that, and that becomes important later on. But the woman gives Hilda something as like a gift to her father, and it's like this old bike from the past, and it's a bike he obviously used to own and ride. And when he sees it, he gets like this flashback of them riding around as kids. And yeah, you get the impression then it brings back something like a bad memory from the past that sort of shakes him. So that's interesting. But it's the woman actually. I think her name's Gillian. I should have made her know her name. But she's the one who actually goes missing. Like Hilda, like cycles along to her backyard, and the police are there, and the indication is that she's dead, but they don't actually come out and say that to Hilda. They say, you know, she's just had an accident. There's nothing for you to worry about. So again, the normal kind of reaction and stuff you would say to a young girl, but in this case it's just heightened. So the police officers are being quite like patronising, kind of quite sort of rude to her, but in reality it probably would be natural to kind of just like protect her and pass this off as there's like nothing. But I think for the purpose of drama it's kind of heightened and exaggerated, which is fine. So this becomes the thing which Hilda obviously starts investigating. And the case itself is pretty solid, as I said, and it looks like it's going to be like the case for the season, if you like. I wondered if we would get a case each episode, but that by the looks of it, they're going to string this out over the season, or certainly into the next episode. And it becomes like this personal type thing with her and her father, where he doesn't want to face the past. He doesn't want to go back to like detective work. And obviously there's now this personal element because it appears as though this old friend of his has died. So Hilda sort of takes on that burden. And it kind of ends with her like riding her bike and kind of suiting up, which is pretty cool. So she puts on like a yellow sort of jacket, gets a satchel and stuff. It's almost like the same as you would see if this was like an adult show, but it's like, yeah, this is it. I'm going to work, I'm going to crack the case, and I'm going to do it for my father. So it's kind of like doing it for both of them. But what actually happens is then she, I think in one of the more clunky moments, because the reason she's got in trouble, as I've said before, is because she's like posted this article online, and it's obviously gone viral, and there's been reactions to it, and there's some negative reactions, quite a lot, where she's just like called just a silly little girl and quite demeaning, which her father tries to hide from her. But she obviously gets into a bit of trouble at school over it. She's starting to be bullied. There's actually a nice use of like the orchestra operatic version of The Creep by Radiohead as she goes to school, and she's kind of being sneered at and bullied, which I remember appearing in I'm trying to remember the film, the one about Mark Zuckerberg, The Social Network. I remember them using that in that trailer. So yeah, very effective bit of music. But yeah, it kind of comes to a head, and I think one of the weaker scenes is her in the cafeteria at school, where she's still being bullied, and it's kind of the day after she's found out about these like negative responses online, and so she prints them off, and she's in the cafeteria, stands up on the table, starts reading them out, and does like this kind of preachy sort of speech where she's basically saying, truth is the key. There's nothing more important than truth. And what happens is a bunch of other kids stand up on the tables as well and starts like standing up for her. And this includes her sister Izzy, so they make up because Izzy kind of realizes then her sister has been hurt by what's been happening. But it's just one of these cliched kind of like preachy type scenes, just a little bit clunky and cliched, but it does actually have a plot purpose, because like the principal comes into the cafeteria and obviously says, get off the table, come here, calls her in, basic Hilda, that's it, I was trying to remember the name. And Hilda notices like footprints, like her footprints on like the food, because you get this kind of food fight, which again is kind of a little bit cliche, but whatever, it sort of blows up, and this sort of sparks something in Hilda. So she's taken to the principal's office, and when she gets an opportunity later, because she goes inside the cupboard and she notices a VCR, and it's the same VCR as she saw at the yard sale earlier, so she knows it belonged to the friend of the dad's, and so rather smartly she like sort of drops it out the window onto like the ledge, so for later on when she gets out of school she can like collect it. So she gets it, it was in the bag, so she goes home with it, and her and her sister check out this tape, the tape that was in it, and it's a tape of these boys being like abducted, or this one boy from back in '88, and it's something which has come up in previously in the episode, because when she was at the police station trying to get information, and again she's kind of talked down to by the men, and it's sort of noteworthy again that she's listened to by this one particular like younger female officer who actually gives her some of the case files. Again, creative license, probably didn't really happen, but whatever, it's a nice enough scene. and she actually tells Hilda about this case in the past in '88 of this boy going missing that had a similar sort of feel to this current case. And so they watched the VCR. So again, that did become important, and they notice that it's like this kid being abducted in a van, and the van pulls away, and the camera then focuses on the other boy who's been left in the street, and Hilda suspects it's her dad, sort of thinks it looks like him. So all these questions come up. Why does the principal have that VCR? Is it her father on the tape? But certainly seems to be. So that's going to become important. But the sister he tells Hilda, don't tell him, because he's been going through a lot recently, and that leads to the end of the episode where she's officially made it her mission to get to the bottom of the truth. So I liked the episode. I thought the case was effective, nicely pieced together. I think it had a lightness of touch. It was a lot of fun. I can see it appealing to a certain audience. Obviously a good lead performance. I think there were one or two clunky moments. I think some of the musical moments could have been toned down a bit. They were overly signpost, and so it kind of ends with her, as I said, on her bike, and you kind of get "I am the champion," so stuff like that. There's a montage with the white stripes at one point in the school, which it was okay actually, but I think occasionally there was forced sort of drama and some of the use of music. Not that it was bad music or anything like that, but it just was a bit overly used and a bit signposted. But besides that, I was positive. I thought it was an enjoyable watch, and I would definitely watch more of this, and I'm gonna check out more. I think it has a certain niche to it and a likable leading character, so I am interested to see more. So all 8 episodes, I think, are up on Apple TV now, and I'll be back in a couple of days with another review of episode 2. So if you've been watching this series, then let me know what you've been thinking of it in the comments below. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys again soon with another TV review. So goodbye for now.